Yo guys, what is good and welcome back on the channel. Now in today's video I'm going to show you my process when it comes to mixing and mastering your beats, and I'm going to do this by giving you 3 examples where I mix and master 3 beats in 3 different ways. So first of all, I'm going to show you my personal approach, how I do it. Then with the second beat I'm going to show you a formula that works with literally every single beat, and that's going to make it easy to mix your beats at the beginning, especially if you don't really know where to set your levels and how to mix your beats properly. And for the third beat I'm going to try out a new method that I haven't really used before, just to see how it works for me. So with that being said, let's jump straight into it. Alright, so I got the first beat pulled up right here. It's pretty much done, except for mixing and mastering, so that's what we're missing. And I'm just going to play the beat so you get an idea of what we're dealing with. And the first step I would usually take when I have something like this is I will make sure that I've named all the channels properly. So every single element, like for example this, that's a pad. We're just gonna rename all of these, just so we know what element we're actually dealing with. And also when we export the stems for the beat later on, every stem is already gonna have the correct name, and it's not just gonna be this gibberish names of like the sounds I used. I also like to put all the corresponding elements into a group. So I have, all the melodic elements in a group. I have the 808 or, the L8s in a group. All the drum elements are in my drum bus. And then I also do one group for effects. I just like to have it that way because I instantly recognize where which elements sit. And I also usually tend to keep this order of like the different groups. You can do this however you want, but you should definitely have the corresponding elements together in order to do the mixing process I do. Because in the mixing stage, I usually don't do much more than leveling all the different elements together. So when I'm making a beat, I put on like some EQ, I put some reverb on, just to make like the sounds fit together. And sometimes I adjust this during the mixing stage, but I usually just keep it as it is, and I just make sure that each element sits at the right volume. Now let's give this beat a quick listen and see if we need any more EQs or reverbs. Like this has a little bit too much reverb, so I'm gonna drag this down. Alright, and now the crucial thing is really setting the levels right. So I like to use this Behringer X-Touch Compact, which is a MIDI controller, and it adjusts the levels of your tracks via MIDI. So for example, if I select this pad, I can see that I've selected it right here, and I can then use this fader in order to adjust the volume. And this just helps me to set levels really precisely and without looking at my screen. And because we can't just set our levels while we play the whole beat, I'm actually gonna close all these groups, mute everything but the melody, open that back up, and then I'm gonna just drag down all the faders, or like, all the volume sliders to 0 dB. So basically when I play the beat back, you don't hear anything. At this point, I also usually put on a soft clipper on the master, as well as this little device, which I call Mix. And this basically contains one utility instrument that allows me to adjust the final volume, as well as one instance of Span, which is a free plugin that just shows the frequencies in your beats, as well as the main volume. But I'm gonna explain how this works later on. Now with this being done, I just start playing back the beat and dragging out the first main element of the melody. Now this is going to be a little bit quieter than what I had before, so I'm just going to boost the volume on my headphones. And I'm also going to drag up the bass. Right here, it's not really important how loud the sound is in general. It's really about setting the relative level. So if the pad sits somewhere right here, the bass shouldn't be louder than this. And this is really something that, you just got to develop with your ear on how things sound. You can always use something like a reference track or reference beat, where you just download a beat from YouTube that has, similar elements to your beat or fits in the same genre, and where you can see how they mix it, how loud are their drums, how loud is their melody, how loud is their 808. And this can help you at the beginning to really define like what volume each individual element should sit at. Now let's quickly level these accents too. Alright, and with that being done, we move on to our next group, which is the 808. Usually, if you only have one 808, you only have to do this once, but you know, we have two 808s in this beat, so we gotta do it for both of them. And now I'll slowly drag up the fader until I feel like it hits the right way. And as said, this is just something that you have to develop your ear for. And especially with the 808, it's easy to set it either to loud or to quiet. But over time, you're gonna develop an ear on how to set your levels properly. Generally, you also want to start at 0 dB and slowly bring the volume up until you feel like you're at a spot where it fits, instead of just pushing it up to 0 dB and then dragging it down until it sits right where it should be, because this way you usually tend to set the volume a little bit higher than what it should be, just because things sound better when they're louder. Now let's move on to the drums. Drag down all the failures. Right here I like to start with the hi-hat. Alright, now that we have every element unmuted and ready in our mix, we're gonna bring up the volume on our soft clipper, because as you can hear and see right now, the soft clipper isn't really hitting, so we'll wait quiet for that. So we're gonna bring back the volume of our headphones and start boosting the soft clipper. I wanna bring back the volume of the kick by 1 dB. Just make sure to not overdo it with the soft clipper. I see a lot of people just boosting the soft clipper to the absolute max and just having a super distorted beat at the end. And while this is kind of a technique that you can use, it usually sounds cool for like 2 beats that you make, and after that it's just gonna sound repetitive. Be mindful with it. Now, because we want to export our untagged wave with -6 dB headroom, I'm actually gonna put this utility that I have right behind it in my mixer down to -6 dB. So this is gonna set the output level of the beat to -6 dB. Now, on the frequency analyzer, you can see the whole frequency fraction. So these are your low frequencies, these are your mids, and these are all your highs. And this is what it usually should look like. You have a little bit of boom on the low end, which is the 808 and kick. And then you have your hi-hats up here. And then you have a lot of space in this middle area where, you know, a voice of a rapper would actually sit. This could even be improved in the speed. And something that you can also do if you have a lot of elements in your mix, be it melodic elements or the drums, is you can pan them to the left and to the right. And I didn't do this when mixing this beat because I already did it in the production stage. But as you can see, the bass is a little bit panned to the left. This accent is going to the right. This open hat is also panned to the right by a tiny bit. So panning your elements is a crucial way to create space in your mix, and we're gonna look at this in the next beat. So as you can hear, this beat is way more rough just from the start, and it definitely needs a lot more work than the last beat that we did. I just want to show you the simple rule that I took in order to get my beats hitting as they do and to help me train my ears. But before we get into that, I actually need to finish up this beat. So it definitely needs a kick. I'm just gonna add this to it. Like this. Maybe we can also add a riser to this. And a crash or an impact. Right, so we now have super simple arrangement, nothing to really be hyped up about. Right here, I feel like this piano could definitely take some more processing. So for example, this frequency right here, it's just super resonating, so I'm gonna take it down by a few dB. And the sound is way cleaner instantly. Also gonna cut out the lows on this pad because there is some weight lows that you don't need, that you don't hear even, but that are still gonna crowd up your mix and your lows especially. And now, if you don't trust your ears enough and you're just not that experienced with how to mix your beats, which is probably why you're watching this video, I got a method right here that can probably help you improve your mixes drastically. And it basically works by dropping one utility plugin as well as spam onto each individual track in your beat and then setting them to a certain dB level or around a certain dB level. So I did that right here. I have this, small tool that I could create that just drags both plugins in already. And I can now play back the beat. And now, as you can see, this piano is hitting somewhere. So it's between 18 and 24 dB when it's playing. So I just want to take that down a little bit. So it's just at minus 24 dB or around that value. And for this method, you don't have to set the levels for all channels to 0. You just keep them where they are and just simulate that. So with the pad, we're going to do the same thing. Bring in the bass. And we want to do the same thing with the plug. So set it around minus 24 again. I'm now going to put another instance of span and utility on the group channel for Malix, so where all the different outputs are going to be combined. And I'm just going to check how loud it hits. Maybe drag it down by another 2 dB. So it's really at that minus 24 mark right there. And it's as simple as that. When we now move on to our AO8, I want to bring it up to around minus 18 dB. Maybe even a little bit more. Now with the drums, it's getting a little bit complicated because we want to have them hit at between minus 12, minus 6 and minus 18 dB, maybe even minus 24, depending on what element we're talking about. So the kick usually sits at minus 12 to minus 6. You can see it's been a minute since I used this method. I'm not as used to it anymore. Then move on to the hi-hat. They should hit at around minus 18 dB. Then the snare, which should hit at around minus 12 dB. Counter snare should be quieter, so at minus 18. Open hat and percussion and stuff should be definitely quieter than minus 18, maybe even minus 24. I also want to pan the open hat a little bit to the right. And maybe pan the second snare to the left. I also feel like the open hat is a little bit too loud at minus 18, so I'm going to put it to minus 24. And then crashes and stuff like this that have a lot of high end should definitely hit not louder than minus 30 dBs. Now just soft clip it again. And boom, just like this, you have a basically finished mixed beat without even having to really hear what you're doing. So just keep in mind, melodics and all that stuff at minus 24, the 808 at minus 18, kick at minus 12, hi-hat, snare at minus 18, snare at minus 12 even sometimes, and the rest should hit between minus 24 and minus 30 dBs, depending on, how much high-end element really has. And even though this doesn't sound perfect, it isn't like finished, it definitely works, and it's a great starting point to, really find this mix. So let's move on to our next and final beat. So this is what we're working with. Definitely needs a lot of work as well. All right, let's EQ these chords a little bit. And also that main layer has a lot of resonating frequencies that we can get rid of. Especially right there. Remove the mud from the 808 by, turning down the volume a little bit around 150 Hertz. Alright, let's mute all the tracks again. And this time we're not gonna start on the melodics, but we're actually gonna start with the 808. Because a lot of people feel like this is a more approachable way to just setting the levels correctly. Because the 808 and the bass in general is the most important element of your beat that you are gonna, center everything else around. So getting that sound right and then having everything leveled for that 808 is definitely gonna make your life easier. So personally, I prefer doing the melodics first, but we're gonna try it out with this beat. Now from there, we're gonna work on the drums. So first the kick, because that's what literally needs to fit to the 808. As you can see, I also panned the counter a little bit to the left and the open a little bit to the right, again, just to make some space in the mix. We can now also adjust the soft clipper already. And now add in the gong and the risers. So in this scenario, we're literally gonna leave it up to, the last part to mix in the melody. Alright, let's quickly check the mix on our speakers. Now, I feel like with this approach, we mixed in the 808 and the kick way too much, like the bass is just way too loud. And I already dragged it back a few dB. And this is an issue I see with a lot of beginner producers. And I tend to say it's because they're using smaller and or cheaper studio monitors and headphones. Especially with studio monitors, they usually can't reproduce certain low frequencies, or they can't reproduce them as loud as others can. And this results in the bass not really sounding that loud, not smacking that hard. And this is an issue because then you just, crank up the bass all the way. And it's gonna sound good on your system, but if you would go ahead and actually play that beat live in a arena, in a club, the bass would be so loud that it would be literally like you could probably only hear the bass. Keep your 808 down a little bit, just in order to provide a good mix to every artist that might even play a beat live, Alright, so I think this is the third beat done as well. I can export this as it is right now. And before I end this video, I just want to tell you, don't stress out over your mix too much. Try to make it sound clean, try to make your beat hit hard, not overdo it, especially with, the soft flipper and stuff. But from there, you can just chill, literally. Because if a beat sounds good and has space for an artist to rap over it, that's everything you need. And I see people being worried about their beat not being picked by a big artist because the mix sucks or they don't master it properly. Man, you don't gotta master beats, first of all. That's just complete nonsense. Your soft dub on a master is your mastering. It just makes the beat hit a little bit harder, but you really shouldn't do much more, my opinion at least. And the other thing is, if you get a beat placed with a major artist, they're gonna want the stems anyway, so their professional engineers can actually go back and make the beat fit to the song that the artist wrote and redo the master, do all of this stuff. But especially the master, it's all on the artist side. They have to master their song properly and they don't need to master beat. They just need something that sounds good, has space, and where all the levels are correctly. So just don't overdo it. Don't throw a bunch of EQs on every single channel trying to make it perfect. It's just too much. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Definitely let me know in the comments what I should do next. If you need more tutorials, more reviews, what you want to see on this channel. And with that being said, have a nice day. Bye.